Hey guys, what's up? My name is Alyce and I am Exiled Power's Discipline Priest. I am here today to talk to you about the Legion dungeons. This guide is going to go through from normal all the way through Mythic and all the changes that they have put in place for that system. So if you are looking for a specific section of the guide, just click on the buttons to take you to that part. To start off with, Legion is going to launch with 10 dungeons total. Right off the bat, you have 4 available. You have these available while you are leveling from 98 all the way through 110. These 4 are the Darkheart Thicket, the Eye of Ashara, the Halls of Valor, and Neltharian's Lair. The next dungeon unlocks at level 105. This dungeon is the Violet Hold, and it is normal and heroic difficulty only, so don't worry, you don't have to do this one in Mythic. It is basically the same as the one in Wrath. However, they are all demons instead of whatever they were in Wrath. I think they were all random stuff. So the bosses have been changed. However, it's still pretty much the same dungeon, timers, everything. Okay, so the next 3 dungeons that unlock once you hit 110. These 3 are the Blackrook Hold, Maw of Souls, and the Vault of the Wardens. The last 2 dungeons actually unlock while you do your Suramar questline. These 2 dungeons are Mythic only, so you cannot, practice in Heroic, get used to the boss abilities before you go into Mythic. You gotta go straight in. These 2 are the Archway and the Court of Stars. So you may have noticed that most of the dungeons are available while you're leveling. You will be in there, if you're doing normals, with people of all levels. Not to worry though, the mobs actually scale to your level. So you will see the mobs at your level. So if you're 105, they'll be 105 and your bosses will be skulls. You could have a 102 in the party as well, and they're going to see level 102 with bosses as skull to them. So they're really not going to change. The good thing about this also is that the base item level of the loot also scales with your level as well. So at level 100, these normal dungeons will drop eye level 700 gear. Each level that you increases the item level of the drops by 10. The only difference is at 110, the item level drops are 805 plus, which means that they'll have the ability to be either Warforged or Titanforged. So the normal dungeons can drop Warforged and Titanforged. Keep that in mind. And that's at level 110. I did see that specifically in the notes, so I'm not sure if they can drop Warforged while leveling or not, but they definitely can at 110. The heroic dungeons and the ability to queue for heroic dungeons actually unlocks at item level 810, and then they drop 825 plus. Mythic dungeons, the original Mythic dungeons, the Mythic 1, drops item level 840, and the item level drops scale with the level of the Mythic Plus dungeon that you do, all the way up to Mythic 10, which drops 885 plus. So the Mythic dungeons. The rest of this video is basically going to be about that. So they did away with challenge modes. They have built it into the Mythic dungeon kind of thing. So the challenge mode option, when you choose your difficulty, is gone. You just have one option, your Mythic. So you go into your Mythic dungeon. There is now a pedestal in there. It's the pedestal that was in the challenge mode. This is where you are going to change which difficulty that you want to complete. So to change your difficulty, you do have to have a keystone, which you get by killing Mythic, finishing a Mythic dungeon. So each level that you complete will reward you with the next level keystone for a random dungeon. This does include the Mythic 1, which is how you get your first keystone. So it gives you a random dungeon, so you're not stuck doing the same dungeon over and over and over again. Gives you a little variety. It also, I think, kind of counteracts the ability to spam one dungeon the whole time for the easiest dungeon or whatever. So to get the loot for the dungeon and the next keystone, you must complete the dungeon within the timer. This does include your mob count, just like in challenge modes. If you do not make this timer, your keystone will deplete. So there is an actual penalty for this instead of just, you wasted 10 minutes of your time. On top of this, they recently added a change where each player death will actually incur a 5-second penalty to the timer. This is a huge change because this was not the case in challenge modes. Keep in mind this does not include deaths prevented by abilities like cheat death. However, it does include dying and using abilities like reincarnation or soulstone. Those are still going to count. So you can't, like in Iron Docks where you would run through the whole group of mobs, die at the end, have somebody have a battle res on them, and mass res everybody. You can no longer do that without losing, 25 seconds on your penalty because 5 people died. That's huge. So, next is the loot lockouts. So your loot lockouts are actually tied to the keystones. They are not tied to a weekly lockout. The exception to that is your regular mythic or your mythic 1. That one is a weekly lockout. You don't need a keystone to start it, so they kind of had to gate it somehow. So if you don't have a history of a Mythic Plus on a character, the first Mythic end boss that you kill will give you a level 2 keystone. Now that's specifically how the Blue Post put it, so I don't know, it doesn't sound like you can, be carried through a higher level to get higher level keystones. It sounds like no matter which one you do, you're going to get a level 2 keystone. So if you have a history on that character, your weekly chest in your order hall will actually give you a keystone based on your best level completed. This keystone, the Blue Post did say that it's probably going to be around 70% of the difficulty completed. The reasoning behind this was because, they don't want you to have to start on the difficulty that maybe you had a little bit of issues with. They want to make it so that you can get 1 or 2 dungeons done to get the gear from those dungeons. So what this means with these loot lockouts tied to the keystones is that you can chain run the same mythic dungeon if you have the non-depleted keystone for this. So say you go into a dungeon with 4 other guildies and you clear it for the regular mythic and you all get keystones for mythic dungeons. Say 3 of them got for the same dungeon. Well, you could go and chain run that dungeon on the next difficulty to get gear and get through it. So, that kind of works for gearing as well. It's a great system so far. So each difficulty that you do go up, there are some extra things that happen. The base thing that happens for each difficulty is that it has an increase of mob health and damage by 9% per level. I didn't see anywhere where this was changed or altered anything, so as of right now, I believe it's still 9%. So the next big change, and probably the biggest thing since this was not in challenge modes at all, is the affixes. So if you've played Diablo, you kind of know what this is. They're on the elite mobs, and it just gives them random abilities, and there's certain combinations of them and everything. So these affixes are added at specific levels of Mythic Plus. Also, they change weekly on which ones are applied. So it's probably region-based, so the whole region, North America, whatever, will have specific affixes for the Mythic Dungeon for that week. So they don't get added until Mythic 3 Plus. So from Mythic 3 through Mythic 5 Plus, you have 1 affix added to the dungeon. The next is from Mythic 6 through 9, you have 2, and then Mythic 10 and up will have 3 added to the dungeon. These available affixes per level actually change based on which level Mythic you are in. So at Mythic 3 Plus, you're only going to have 1 affix. That 1 will be one of 4. These 4 are Bolstering, Raging, Sanguine, and Teeming. So Bolstering is where non-boss enemies will buff nearby allies' health and damage when defeated. So basically you pull a trash pack, you kill one, it's going to boost the other ones in that trash pack. So it kind of makes it so you don't want to pull a whole bunch at once. Second is the Raging, which is non-boss enemies will enrage at low health, dealing double damage until killed. So it's just a basic enrage. Next is Sanguine. So shortly after death, non-boss enemies will leave a pool of blood on the ground which grows to a 5-yard radius over 2 seconds. This pool heals enemies and damages players for a percentage of their maximum health. So don't stand it. Don't tank the mobs in it. Fairly easy there. And the last one for this section is Teaming. Additional non-boss enemies are present throughout the dungeon, and the kill count requirement is increased. So there's just going to be more mobs. Pretty easy, right? So at Mythic 6 Plus, you're getting 2 affixes. You're going to get one of that first set. Those 4 are still available. And then your second one will be one of the next 4. All new ones. So the 4 are going to be Overflowing, Necrotic, Skittish, and Volcanic. So Overflowing is that all overhealing done by healer spec players will trigger a heal absorb on the target proportional to the amount of overhealing. So a lot of people read this and think, oh hey, it's going to add a shield. Yeah, it is a shield, however, it's absorbing your healing, not their damage taken. So if you have somebody that has 100,000 health, they get hit for 50,000. Okay, they're down to 50,000. You heal them for 75,000. You overhealed for 25,000, which means that you now have an extra 25,000 that you have to heal before you will do any more effective healing to them. Healers got to pay attention to what they're doing. That's all that one is. Alright, so Necrotic is the second one here, and it is that enemy melee attacks apply a stacking debuff that deals damage and reduces healing received. Now, they actually made a change with this one. They were finding that it was stacking too quick with mobs that were dual wielding, so they did make it so that only main hand attacks do apply that. Third is Skittish. Skittish is that just tanks generate much less threat. Pretty simple. And then the last is Volcanic. The enemies can cause eruptions of flame beneath the feet of distant players. Pretty straightforward there as well. And last, there are 2 more that will pop up. These only pop up at Mythic 10 and up. These 2 are Tyrannical and Fortified. Now keep in mind that you will only have one of these at a time. So it kind of evens out if you're doing 10 plus because you're going to have one or the other. And Tyrannical is that your bosses have significantly more health and damage. And then the second is Fortified, which increases the health and damage of non-boss enemies. So either your trash is going to have more health or adds during bosses, or your bosses are going to have more health and do more damage. So there are specific combinations for these affixes in the Mythic 6 through 9. These are going to be, there's 8 different options. So you're not going to have certain abilities with certain other ones. I'll run through them really quick and then they'll be on the screen if you want to see more about what those are. So your first is Teaming with Skittish. Second is going to be Raging with Necrotic. Third is going to be Bolstering with Overflowing. And then you have Sanguine and Volcanic. Next is Teaming and Necrotic. Then you have Raging and Volcanic. Next is Bolstering and Skittish. And then the last one is Sanguine and Overflowing. The Mythic 10 plus ones, which was the Tyrannical and the Fortified, all it does is it adds those to the rotation. So you can have all 8 of those options, and then you'll have one of the last 2, which is the Tyrannical and Fortified, for your third affix. So my last two notes, I did mention this when going over the loot. So you really don't have to do anything past the 10 plus if you're just going for loot. Keep that in mind. So you can go for Mythic 15 if you're going for the artifact appearance. If you want to push really hard for that, you can probably push for that. However, it's going to get easier as the expansion goes further. So if you don't care if you get it right now, then you can probably wait for that. So, if you want to see any of the guides for all of the heroic dungeons except for Violet Hold and the two Suramar ones, you can check out our channel. There are guides for all of those up with the Discipline Priest point of view. Yeah, if you have any questions, just put them in the comment section below, and like the video if you like it. Subscribe to our channel. We'll be putting out a lot more videos. And as always, have a great day.